education for students. And I'm sure there's some litigation risk, that will never happen in the way somebody, because someone will say, oh no, someone might get burned or something. But are we missing fundamental opportunities that anyone can think of, just in terms, as a parent, have you seen stuff that you think could happen? Jennifer, you're waiting your question.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that we've been working with the Broward School District on just this issue. We have an environmental partnership agreement in which we lend our staff to the delivery of STEM-based education and programming with a focus on climate change, the impacts on our environment, our natural resources, our water resources, etc. I know that the existing textbook has about 1 page dedicated to climate change, but we've not only begun to deliver that program, but we've also launched in collaboration with the district a countywide program that's focused on an eco-challenge in which all the students, the administrators, the teachers, and the volunteers have an opportunity for recognition to call out the projects that they're involved to focus on sustainability, climate change initiatives, and receive recognition at the district level. So it's a newer program, but it's one in which I think we're making really nice traction. It's a good combination of resources.
Tony?
Yeah, this is another area where I think we really have to challenge ourselves to find the scalable way of doing this. It's very hard to make changes, especially in today's world of education, where everything's written to these standards. They've got to teach basically a very, very full schedule to meet all the requirements they have for the standards at the state level. And one of the things that we did back when I was at the Wrigley Institute was we created, because we had 2 million kids, right? We couldn't just do the neighborhood schools. We were in downtown Los Angeles, and so we had millions of kids. And I used to say, if I had 25 cents per kid, that was a good amount of funding for a program. We did competition-based programs where we had small groups of students self-identify in the high school to work with a teacher to change a curriculum element in the existing curriculum to use either ocean or sustainability example to do that particular lesson plan. Those were then distributed to a network of teachers all through LA Unified School District and the other big school districts. And then the students had to do a service learning activity with the rest of their school, or a number of them did it with the middle schools that fed into their high school. And some of them would be 10,000 students out there cleaning up a storm drain or with the bowels of a water system rather than the bowels of the building. But the whole thing was they did it all because the winning team got to spend a week with Quicksilver's surf team at an international competition. And we had 100 different school teams, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of students involved in service learning activities, all because you held up the carrot of something they really, really wanted to do, and they competed for doing it. And that, and at $500,000 a year, we could run that program, 25 cents a student, because it was scalable to competition. I think we've got to think more cleverly about with this massive enterprise that we've got, how do you insert innovations in there in ways that meet the needs of the teachers, to not have to add something to the curriculum, meet the needs of the standards, identifies leadership among the students. These student groups are just phenomenal in terms of what you think they're going to become when they're someday up on these kinds of panels or up there changing worlds or the next CEO of Walmart. And so I think that we got to think creatively about what gets these things to scale.
Yeah, just a quick comment. The scale issue, I think, is right on, but you might be surprised to know that ESCOs, often as part of their packages, provide learning opportunities for students in K-12 universities. We literally sponsor competitions in universities some years, and thank God that gets to the point, hey guys, you got to take a shower. I know you want to use less water than the one next door, but get on. But the packages that we have been delivering inside K-12, way too few of them, way too few school districts, I think are pretty profound. Things, let's go teach the teachers how to teach this. Here's classroom materials and things like that. And frankly, that's what gives me optimism. I see my granddaughter, which gives me great joy, telling her parents to do stuff that I could never get them to do. Turn off the lights, you're using too much water. It just delights me no end. But I think that's the thing. I think there is no silver bullet in this stuff. There's silver buckshot, and that's what let's get to the kids, let's get to the students. If we do that, I feel good about it.
Diana, you were waiting to come. I want to insert one item. So maybe we need to have a joint meeting of 2 organizations that have NCSE as their initials. The National Council on Science Education and NCSE. Maybe, I don't know, something to think about. I don't mean a merger, but a conversation. Diana, do you have a very quick point to make?
yes, I think beyond education, the way to reach this age group is really through social media. And I think we need to better utilize this opportunity, this tremendous channel of communication. That's what mostly influencing their interests and their behavior. We need to utilize that much more. And equally, we talked about business models earlier. I do think we are not going to solve the whole climate change issue until we innovate very much on business models where we need to learn from. Basically, our business models haven't changed in the energy field for the fields we are talking about in the last 20, 50 years. But let's look at the IT world and media. There is such an enormous amount of innovation in the business model there. Couldn't we send some of those people into our area to have much more innovation? So that's what I think are some of the opportunities.
All right, I want to kind of get back into the nuts and bolts stuff. We have a couple more minutes. And there was a question about when someone said only 23 states have deregulated utilities, how much of an opportunity is there? And from what you were saying about Florida, it sounds like that's an issue there. Is that an issue or a problem or an opportunity? Another one basically talks about, are we forgetting about the European, is there any way to get more of a European-ish approach to American policy on energy pricing, carbon pricing, that kind of thing? So I'm going to throw those two out there as sort of a policy hardball. It's not a softball. Diane?
Yes, there is so much hype around, or so much expectation on deregulation and solving some of our issues, and also in Europe. But frankly, I don't really see how deregulation helps. In the end, I think the utility business model, or the utility model of the US, I think is much better serve climate change and long-term decision making than what we have now, what we're heading for in Europe, and with the tremendously deregulated and unbundled utility industry. At the same time, yes, what helps in Europe rather is just that we happen to have very high energy prices because we are not so much blessed with energy resources as well. Our taxes are very high. So, but that's a different issue. But I don't think the US should give up the utility model. Some of the DSM mandates and the decoupling mandates have been very successful, and really rather Europe should look at the US model, right? Not the other way.
Jennifer, you?
Yeah, I would just follow up in the confirmation that yes, we have a regulated environment that makes it very challenging to do anything outside of the services of which our energy provider provides us. We have very low energy conservation requirements that are mandated by our Public Services Commission. We've been unable to get that changed as of to date. There are no incentives at the state level for solar rebates. Our energy provider has a pilot program. I've said I don't know what it is that they're piloting. They're required to deliver so many rebates in a year. They offer them once a year. They're exhausted in 4 minutes. And we've learned that the demand well exceeds what anybody is currently willing to dedicate to incentivize these types of initiatives. And every time there's an opportunity to be on stage, we hear about how solar doesn't work, the costs haven't come down in 30 years, their fiduciary responsibility not to drive people in that direction. It's a terrible problem in our state, and it's very challenging at the local level to see how we overcome that. And we're looking for those partnerships with the energy providers and others about those creative solutions, but it is a problem.
Yeah, I think deregulation is bad and different. I think the real key was just look 3,000 miles west. I think the California model, and a lot of my life, where the regulators have defined that energy conservation is the fuel of first choice. They actually incentivize utilities based upon not producing fundamentally as much electricity.
So there's a way to actually do that.
I absolutely think. I know a lot of CEOs. I always thought those of utilities. I always thought they were the enemies. And one said to me one day, "Well, if I can make money in energy costs by not producing electricity, I'm all for that." And yet, when I travel Europe, that can't be. Utilities, they get paid to make kilowatt hours. There is a different model. I think the California model is probably best in the world around that. And we ought to do that. I think
So
it's made a change.
So megawatts actually can
Absolutely.
There's regulation and there's regulation. and some regulation is really stupid. Thurman Arnold in the Folklore of Capitalism in the 30s, at a time of great social reform in this country, observed that regulation was the rock upon which reform often founded. And if we look at regulation, we need to look at who's being served by those regulations. Are those regulations in the public interest, or are they in essence in the private interest? And there is a patchwork of answers to that question, but it is a critically important public policy question. Part of the answer to that is to engage our cities and enable our cities to take a more powerful role in this, because where governors can play favorites of one kind or another, and where federal bureaucrats and presidents and mayors have a real tough time doing that, because they have to deliver electricity that's affordable, they have to make sure the trash is picked up, they have to make a home for corporations to come in, and it seems to me that a renaissance of city enablement would be one place to start getting the questions of regional, perhaps sub-state, would be one place to conduct that examination of just who really benefits, who benefits from which regulatory structures, and let's be savvy enough to distinguish between which ones make sense from a sustainability perspective and which ones are in essence there simply to create the continuation of the status quo.
So we're down to the lightning round. We have like 1 minute left. Any one or two word opportunities? I've heard a couple of California megawatts, European deep retrofits. What else, just really quick, what comes to mind? Right down the road.
I think that we have to look beyond just the energy savings as the sole value that we get from these transformations. The one that comes to my mind is that when you have LED lights, it's now digital lighting. It can affect the wavelength. Our eyes see blue light as the key for whether it's daytime or nighttime. We don't start making melatonin until 2 hours after the last time we've seen blue light. You look at that screen before going to bed, you're not going to sleep in a healthy way for a few hours. Digital light doesn't have to have that blue wavelength in. We can tune in what wavelengths we deliver or not. This is a health issue that is being enabled by a transformation for energy efficiency. And we've got to look at those co-value kinds of things as we develop these.
Any other quicker?
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. I got to write about it.
I need your help. Each one of your universities and each of you scientists live in local communities. I don't believe things are going to happen inside the Beltway. I really don't believe it's necessarily state capitals, but your voice is independent. Go talk to your local community leaders. Go talk to your planning commissions and say, you know what? We need to put things in place to help the built environment. As simple as let's measure the performance. Just like I can read the ingredients on my candy bar, we should be able to figure out what's going on in our buildings so that our consumers, you and I, can make informed decisions about whether we want to buy a home and when it's time to upgrade buildings. That is absent. It's astounding to me, the biggest thing we will ever buy. You know so little about. And the way to do it is locally. It isn't federally. It's locally, and your voice would count. To me, they just say, I'm trying to make a buck. If you go have that conversation, do it scientifically, you can make a change.
So, Jennifer, quickly.
Yeah, the Presidential Task Force on Climate Preparedness and Resilience has been convened. I would encourage everyone to look to see who the members are. They're going to be taking recommendations for addressing challenges that that can be overcome through executive process relating to a diversity of issues, including all those that we've talked about on the stage today as part of built systems. So I'd encourage you to submit recommendations to individuals who are members of that group with their draft report coming out in May.
That's great. Diana, last.
Co-benefits, we need to be much better able to integrate co-benefits in decision-making. Employment, energy security, health, energy poverty reduction, social welfare, all of these. Almost none of the other
Blue light.
countries have such co-benefits.
That's great. Well, this has been a great conversation. I spent a little time on Monday with Pete Seeger before he passed away, and one of the last songs he got to sing was Solartopia. I don't think we're not going to immediately transform, but we've seen lots of opportunities here. Thank you.
make first, actually a pitch.